Good morning, and welcome to Neighborhood Church. Welcome to all members, friends, and guests. My name is Clyde Derrick, and I am serving as your worship associate today. Neighborhood Church creates and grows an inclusive community of faith connected by love, spirit, and service. We acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples, the traditional caretakers of the lands and waters of this campus. With respect for the rights and wisdom of indigenous people, we acknowledge our harmful colonial histories and commit to decolonizing our own practices, to learning new ways of being in community and with each other, in good relationship with the indigenous people of this land and with the land itself. Today's service is led by Reverend Dr. Omega Burkhart. Our music today is led by Music Director Dr. Zenaida Robles, with Associate Music Director Wells Lang and the Neighborhood Choir. Please take a moment to silence your devices as we begin our service. Families with young children are always welcome in the sanctuary, and there is additional seating in the entry foyer or narthex. I have 3 announcements today. Bring holiday cheer into the life of a local foster kid or youth that Neighborhood Church helps support. Select a child or young adult from our list and buy a gift or gifts or gift cards. We provide wish lists for the younger kids. The older ones prefer gift cards. You can sign up online and see the newsletter for the link, or at our foster youth ACAC table on the patio after the service today. If you have any questions, please contact Lynn Miyamoto. Join us for an evening of holiday magic hosted by the musicians and singers of Neighborhood Church. This coming Friday at 7:30 p.m., we'll host an evening of music and celebration right here in the sanctuary. And rumor has it, Mrs. Claus will be making an appearance to greet everybody. Maybe she'll take your wish list back to Santa. And by the way, she covered her own travel. And now I have an announcement. I'll turn over to representatives of our high school students.
Yes. All right. Well, me and Ben are members of the senior high group, and we had a little overnight for our tradition of Yule logs, and today we're going to be selling them out on the patio, as long as helping the little kids make little versions of them for their classes. And
these are examples. These are both Yule logs that you can, or well, this one is a Yule log you can buy, and
this one we made special for Dr. Reverend Omega.
It's a little mouse.
Meese.
Thank you. So we'll see you guys outside of the table.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a nice day and a good service.
More extensive announcements, as well as our order of service this morning, are available as a link in the Sunday email. Our order of service is also visible online by scanning the QR code on the back of your hymnal with your phone camera. Again, welcome to Neighborhood Church, whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey. Welcome to this inclusive faith community connected by love, spirit, and service.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Omega Burkhart. I use the pronouns she, they, and ella in Espanol. I'm a white, femme-presenting woman with silvering hair, gold jewelry, and many visible tattoos. I'm temporarily able-bodied, of above average height and weight, and today I wear a white robe with a brightly colored stole around my shoulders. We give a visual description for those who are in attendance or who are joining us online who have visual differences. I and the worship team of Neighborhood Church welcome you here in the sanctuary, and we extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining us either right now on Sunday morning or at a time in the future. In these days separated into a before and an after, we learn to live in the in-between, between ways of being and knowing, held in the waiting of winter where we know all plans and predictions are partial, and where we learn to pivot is as a spiritual practice. So writes my colleague, the Reverend Gretchen Haley. For us, gathering like this for this hour, it is a way to mark the time, to know ourselves here, now, straddling worlds, maybe for our whole lives, but here we revel in curiosity and we let the learning wash over us. Here we refuse to be seduced by certainty. Here we praise the mystery. Here we give thanks for all that remains hidden in this liminal time, all that grows beneath the earth and behind the stars, beyond our view, beyond our lifetime. Let us know ourselves as sowers of seeds, tenders of possibility, called to presence and to partnership beyond our imaginations. With this flame that we light this morning, we remember our promise to stay in relationship, to repair what has been broken, and to do more than just survive, to insist on joy, and to lead in love. As we gather this morning, I invite you into a moment of centering, creating space for this moment to unfold in grace and in beauty. As Annie Dillard says, beauty and grace are performed whether or not we will sense them. The least we can do is try to be there. So I invite you into a shared moment of silence. Find yourself strong, supported in your seats, breathing deeply in the way that feels most comfortable to you with your eyes open or closed. This morning marks the second Sunday in the season of Advent. In the Christian tradition, Advent is the beginning of the church year, recognizing the transforming power of God in the world and looking forward to the birth of Jesus and spiritual light. Christianity is not alone in celebrating light this time of year, as you saw with our Yule logs, also Hanukkah, solstice, and Kwanzaa all involve candles and fire and lights as part of their celebrations. Each week until Christmas, we are lighting a new candle on our Advent wreath. The circle of greenery reminds us of the eternal circle of life, without beginning, or end. And the candles remind us that we are called to be a light amid the darkness facing our world. The light of Advent grows brighter and brighter, guiding us toward personal peace, shared joy, and more love. This morning we light the second candle. We light this candle as a symbol of our longing for peace. We can bring our hope into the world if we practice peacemaking. Our caring community aspires to be a source of freedom from violence and exclusion. May we become, as poet June Jordan wrote, the ones we have been waiting for. Together may we strive to create lasting peace.
Our opening hymn is number 72 in your gray hymnal, Has Summer Come Now Dawning. It's a hymn we're not as familiar with, so Wells is going to play the entire first verse. Listen and prepare yourselves as we sing. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing Has Summer Come Now Dawning.
May I have all the children and youth forward for our time for all ages? John? Hi. All right, those look comfy. All right. Okay, so today we are going to be reading a book that several of you have already told me you know and have even read already this year. So, this is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Maybe some of our grown-ups out there know this one too. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled, his grinchy fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would make bright and early. They'd rush for their toys, and then, oh, the noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast. They'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together and sing Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. He chuckled and chuckled, what a great Grinchy trick. With his coat and his hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer, the Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, and then took some red thread and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, get up, and his sleigh started down towards the home where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first to go. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, the Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast and saw a small who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know what that old Grinch was so smart and slick? He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there. I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went up the chimney. He went up the chimney and stuffed the tree. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for other Who's mouses. Oh, sorry. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-hoo to the Who's," he grinchishly humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open in a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whisked with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food and the feast. And he... Yeah, you know the end. He himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. All right. Thank you all. We'll sing you out to your classes.
Each Sunday, our congregation dedicates 100% of its contributions to 501c3 organizations or neighborhood church-based social justice activities that are making a difference in our community and the world. Each selected guest organization aligns with our community's mission and values and is nominated by church members who often are longtime volunteers and supporters of these change-making organizations. You can donate in one of two ways. You can use your cell phone to donate by texting the number on the screen or screens, or if you prefer to donate in person, put your donation in one of the designated boxes during the music after the service. There is a donation box here in the front, behind in the back center row, and in the narthex entryway on the table. You may rise during the music to put your donation in the box if you wish. Please extend help to those in your vicinity who may need assistance reaching the donation boxes. If you wish to make a payment toward your pledge or contribute to church operations, make a note in the subject line or use an envelope available at the donation boxes. This week, our gifts will support Camp de Benneville Pines. Here with more information is Martin Matthews.
Good morning. My name is Martin Matthews, and I serve as your de Benneville Pines Camp Committee Chair for summer camp. Many of you have participated in our church's annual summer and winter camps. Your support of the camp through your participation is much appreciated. For those who have not had the opportunity to spend a weekend or to volunteer at camp, Camp de Benneville Pines is a mountain retreat about 90 miles from here that is owned by the UU churches in the Southwest District, which includes the 25 congregations that actively participate in camp activities and offerings. This past year, 10 groups of UU congregations held weekend retreats, including Neighborhood Church. We are the only congregation to hold 2 annual retreats at the camp, and that's because, well, we're just extra. Neighborhood is just extra, okay? Last week, Paul Wallace gave a really nice listing of so many of the additional features and camps that are offered throughout the year. This week, I thought I might say something a little more personal about camp. Coming up with a couple of sentences about what Camp de Benneville Pines has meant to me and my family over the last 18 years is not easy. I mean, camp is so much a part of our church experience and vice versa that it gets to be blurred. My wife and I started a family fairly late and arrived here at Neighborhood knowing just 1 or 2 people. Our origin story for finding Neighborhood Church is not noble. You probably all know that I was next door at the Gamble House, desperately looking for a bathroom.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. And for us, the awkwardness of meeting other churchgoers on the patio when we first started here was real. Everyone seemed so welded together out there except for the 3 of us. We decided to attend summer camp all those years ago and took our 2-year-old to the mountains for the weekend. We knew just 2 people, and they suggested that we do this. And then as soon as we signed up and paid our deposit, they notified us, we can't go this year. So we were completely alone at camp for the first time all those years ago. But the combination of the beautiful setting, the food, games, and workshops were just a perfect way to get to know this very caring community of people. Camp de Benneville Pines gave us a home here at Neighborhood. And that, in my estimation, is a cause worth supporting. Donations were and are essential to keep our camp going. Today's offering will be part of Neighborhood Church's contribution to sustaining our UU Mountain Camp Retreat. Please give generously. If you have questions about Camp de Benneville Pines, ask the winter camp table, which is outside on the patio to the right at the doors, where there are flyers about Camp de Benneville Pines. Your generosity is greatly appreciated. I am literally putting on a new hat as your Dining for Dollars committee chair and reminding all of you reminding all of you Dining for Dollars event sponsors who donate our wonderful events that your committee needs your submissions by New Year's Eve this year. Please take a flyer outside, use the form, and commit to hosting a wonderful experience for your church members in 2025. Last night, I was at Susan Castle's house singing Christmas carols with a fantastic group of neighborhood people. It was just wonderful. I know it takes time planning your year out to figure out when you want to host something, but now is the time. Our deadline is New Year's Eve. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. And we'll see you all at the tables outside. Thank you.
Thank you for giving generously this morning.
Today we get to feature two terrific soloists. The second anthem today will feature our very own Wendy Hunter singing solo. But for our first anthem today, it will feature our new soprano soloist and section leader, Sonia Ohan. Please refrain from applauding after our anthems today. Thank you so much.
Our reading this morning comes from A Feminist Ethic of Risk, a book written by Dr. Sharon Welch. She bases her study in feminism on the African American women feminists of womanist theory. She uses it as a starting point for how our society can form relationships of mutual support in difficult times. I'm highlighting her work today as we ponder the theme of presence in December, because I believe it offers us a vision for how we can consider the simplest acts of caring for ourselves and one another, acts of being attentive to our world and our lives, really is an act of joy. It is an act of joyfully creating social structures of mutual support that support thriving in our lives and the lives of others. The selection from Dr. Welch. She writes, when we begin from a self-created love for nature and for other people, choosing not to resist injustice would be the ultimate loss of self. Love provides the resiliency of commitment, vision, and hope when efforts for change either are defeated or repeatedly are shown to be insufficient. The recognition that we cannot imagine how we will change society is the beginning point, not the end. It is the beginning point of an ethic founded on love for oneself and others. Resistance to injustice and the creation of intrinsically temporal and limited social structures are acts of love, affirmations of the delightfulness and profundity of life. Such acts declare the tragedy of what is lost because of injustice, and they celebrate the satisfaction of life lived under conditions of justice. A deep joy accompanies the cycles of providing shelter and food, nurturing the young, and celebrating the beauty of life in art, music, and poetry. Thus ends our reading for this morning.
Lully, thou little tiny child, bye bye, Lully, 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 thou little tiny child, bye bye, Lully, Lully. Oh, sisters too, how may we do for to preserve this day, this poor youngling for whom we sing? Bye bye, Lully, Lully. Herod the king in his raging charged he hath this day his neither say nor sing. Bye bye, lule, lule.
There is an area in the Milwaukee airport, just on the other side of the security zone as you're heading to your boarding gate, that is called the recombobulation area. This is the zone where there are designated benches where you can put your shoes back on or put your laptop back in your bag or whatever it is that you need to do before you head off to your flight. Tech folks, I have a picture just in case you all don't believe me. Not that I'm one to lie. Andrew, could you hit the picture for that slide, please? I took a picture of my dog. That's Jack Jack. We made it through security. It is a tradition in my family when we fly back to Milwaukee to take a picture of the sign that says recombobulation area. As many of you know, I lived in Milwaukee for about 16 years before relocating to Southern California, and I took for granted that this area and the airport existed with this name. I guess I assumed that most places had recombobulation areas, an area to catch your breath and sort of prepare for the next part of your journey after an episode of discombobulation, that is the security area. In fact, that term became common in our family. We talked about it openly, still do, about various states of combobulation, the dis or the re. And if you ask most folks from Milwaukee or those who frequently fly in and out of this airport, they will acknowledge the use of this word. They will celebrate it as being a true marker of cultural identity of the city. It wasn't until 2015 when I met some folks who poked so much fun at me for the use of that word that I realized it was quite odd. While on the Camino de Santiago in 2015, I'd stopped with my walking companion Shannon to reorient our layers in the hot sun after making it up to the top of a hill. Two men from England stopped to ask if we were okay. Our paths had crossed various times over the preceding days. They were kindly checking up on us. Of course, I responded to them, "We're just fine. We're just getting recombobulated." Made perfect sense to me. They responded with such mirth. "Recombobulation. Did you hear that, Jeff?" said one to the other, and they laughed all the way down the hill. In fact, over the next couple of days, when they saw us in subsequent towns, they would just yell out, "Recombobulation," making fun of the Milwaukeean women who were hiking the Camino. That's when I learned it's not as commonly used as I had thought. Recombobulation. Thank you. You can turn that slide off, Andrew. I appreciate it. I think, dear ones, we are in a moment of recombobulation. We are in the season of Advent. For those for whom this season carries the weight of expectation and waiting, we pause to honor this unfolding. We are quickly approaching the longest night of the year. We watch the skies grow dark by early afternoon. And we are in a moment when the chaos of the election has calmed, but we do look ahead to January, perhaps with breath caught in our throats. We are in a moment as a congregation here, you and I together. We've gotten through some anxiety-producing events, and we're wondering if there will be calm in the future. We are in a liminal space. We are in a pause after some chaos, in a transition. We are at the bench where we put our shoes on after getting through security and before we take flight to somewhere else. Now, the title of today's sermon is a callback to a version of a sermon I gave last year. For those of you who are paying attention, you'll mark it on your scorecard. This year marks the fourth time, I like to be honest about this, the fourth time that I have given a sermon with the word Apocaloptimist in the title. The first time I gave the sermon was in December of 2020, in the midst of the deepest wave of COVID. I preached my heart out into a computer screen, into the ether. The second time I gave that sermon was in December of 2021 when I preached my heart out into that computer screen as we closed again for the Omicron version of the coronavirus. The third time was with you all last year in a celebration of hope with my first year here with you all. And this year, I give it to you again, the Apocaloptimist. I admittedly stole it from a meme I found on the internet. You see, it means when it's the end of the world, and yet you somehow still think everything will turn out okay. I am an Apocaloptimist, putting my shoes back on in the recombobulation area. I am. I think you are too. We are on these benches together. We're taking a moment to collect ourselves. We are centering ourselves. We are helping one another. We are creating opportunities for observation and reflection and planning. And then we will jump into action. But we don't need to just yet. This is how we hold hope. This is what faith is. Not being certain of an outcome, as my friend and colleague, the Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd says. She says, hope does not require ease. It doesn't require naivete. It is real and tangible and enduring, even after the good news has all been declared. Hope does not require certainty. It requires presence, I believe. I think the important takeaway from her work is that being present to the process of unfolding is that divine work of creating hope in our world. Not because there is a known outcome, but rather because there isn't one. The theme for this month is presence, not those found under the tree, maybe that also, but rather awareness of our moment, of this moment, how to be present in it, whether on our own, in our own spiritual practices, or as we gather in ritual. Appropriately, Casey Overton writes in the Enfleshed Liturgies, Advent, this time of year, Advent is an irrational commitment to a better future. Advent is a protest demand. Advent is still believing that we are loved even when we have forgotten what love feels like. This is the season of embodying hope by believing we are loved and loving others unconditionally. It is a presence that is a balm. It is a rest before whatever happens next happens, because it will happen. It is the resilience of commitment, in the words of Dr. Sharon Welch. It is vision. It is a recognition that we can't imagine quite yet how change will happen, but it is founded on love for ourselves and one another. And the reality of this is that it's hard to be present. It's hard to sit in the recombobulation area when you know you have a flight to get to. It is hard to do this. The ways our world is changing is so profound. We don't have the capacity to take it all in any meaningful way. The rapidity of change, the turmoil of change, and the world unfolding in front of us in our very eyes, this very moment, this time of Advent, this time between two holiday traditions or many holiday traditions that are celebrated in this space. We need to be present. We need a moment of rest. We need to give our hearts and our minds a moment to adjust. Maybe our hearts need to grow another size or two, or maybe not. We need to adjust to new realities, honor that our present one may be abundant in ways that we don't normally observe, and also to pause and feel the grief and pain at a world that feels broken. Now, in this congregation, in the coming months, we will continue our work, even as we respond to world events in an unpredictable world. We have a Christmas pageant coming up, a no rehearsal pageant in a few weeks that will bring with it all of the joyous chaos that a no rehearsal pageant can on the 22nd. On Christmas Eve, we'll have two services, one at 5 and one at 8. And on the 29th, to close out the year, we'll hold a service in the form of a conversation about what this year has taught us and what we expect to find in the new year. We'll kick off 2025 on January 5th with a fire communion. Many of you really liked that last year. And then later in January, our congregation will participate together in a common read of a novella by Becky Chambers entitled Psalm of the Wild Built. That's Psalm, P-S-A-L-M, if you're looking for Christmas gifts or stocking stuffers. This novella imagines a new kind of apocalypse, one where a changed world brings hope. But for now, for these days, let us be present to ourselves and to the needs of others. A moment of recombobulation in the divine unfolding. There is holiness in the moment of pause before the next, whatever it is. It's the last few weeks of pregnancy before the birth of a new child. It is the stillness that early evenings impose that are meant to help us slow down to take stock and recover. It is the moment when the Grinch pauses his overladen sled and he puzzles with his puzzler for 3 hours. Precariously perched at the precipice high above the town, before he becomes overcome by emotion of the sweet song, he waits. And he listens. Be honest, how many of you have tried to put your shoes on while standing in the line after going through security? Waiting for your bags with one hand, trying to put your sweater on with the other, trying to shove your shoes on your feet, accounting for all of your belongings in a crush of humanity. How many? I know I have. You're balanced on one socked foot, and you think somehow that will make it go faster. I invite you to sit on the bench. Sit on the bench for a moment. Together, we'll sit and we'll take a deep breath. I'll help you with your luggage, and you can help me with mine. I'll hold your sweater as you slip it back on, and you can help me put the items back in my backpack that I took out. And then, when we're rested and we're recombobulated, we'll head to our boarding gate together. May it be so.
Our closing hymn is number 226 in your gray hymnal. Please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing People Look East.
A benediction in the form of a poem from Rosemary Watola Trommer. So, I can't save the world. She writes, I can't even save myself. I can't wrap my arms around every frightened child. I can't foster peace among nations. I can't bring love to all who feel unlovable. So I practice opening my heart right here in this room and being gentle with my insufficiency. I practice walking down the street heart first. And if it is insufficient to share love, I will practice loving anyway. I want to converse about truth. I want to converse about trust. I want to invite compassion into every interaction. One willing heart can't stop a war. One willing heart can't feed all the hungry. And sometimes daunted by a task too big, I tell myself, what's the use of trying? But today, the invitation is clear. To be ridiculously courageous in love, to open the heart like a lilac in May. Knowing freeze is possible and opening anyway, to take love seriously, to give love wildly, to race up to the world as if I were a puppy, adoring and unjaded, stumbling on in my own exuberance. To feel the shock of indifference, of anger, cruelty, or fear, and to stay open, to love as if it matters, as if the world depends on it.